Now, think about this paragraph here. At the end of the course, you should be able to analyze written and spoken texts in terms of their discourse structure and show how writers and speakers create meanings, and so on and so forth. Now, that paragraph is fairly ordinary, nothing strange about the paragraph. If we look at this paragraph, though, it's really completely incomprehensible. At, the, of, the, you, should, be, to, and so on. There's no meaning there at all. And if you were to look at that paragraph, you'd say, it's not even English, really. I have no idea what it's saying. But what about this paragraph? End course, able analyze written, spoken texts. Terms discourse structure. Show writers, speakers create meanings. Choice, lexis, words, grammar. Put words together. Readers, listeners, process meanings, and so on. Now, this paragraph, you can understand a little bit. You could say maybe even 50-60% of the meaning of that original paragraph. Now, in the paragraph we just looked at, in this paragraph we have all the grammar words, but none of the content words, none of the real vocabulary. And in this paragraph, we have none of the grammar words, only the content words. In other words, the vocabulary tells you more of the meaning. The vocabulary, really, we can say, comes first. It's much more important. And the grammar, although it's necessary, it's not the basis of the language. Now, here's a few examples we can use to think about that. For example, why do we say, I beg your pardon, but we don't say, I plead your pardon? Why do we say, he requested an appointment, but not, he asked an appointment? We can say he asked for an appointment, it's true. Now, these words, beg and plead, and request and ask, these words have their own grammar that attaches to those particular words. So if we think about this question, how do you use beg and plead? How do you use request and ask? And when do you use these words? Well, we can look at a corpus and get some clues about this. For example, here's the output for a search on beg. And we can see just by glancing at the screen here, we've got beg the question, beg your pardon. In fact, beg the question and beg your pardon take up all of these examples, all of the examples completely. So those are the most common meanings of beg. Now, if we looked in the dictionary, we would find that both beg and plead have as their, you could say, their basic meaning to ask very strongly. And if we were to try to think of a good example of the word beg, maybe for many people it would be, the man was begging money on the street. That's our image of the word beg. But in fact, that, you could say, that core dictionary meaning is in fact not the most common way in which we use the word. If we look at the word plead, there's another pattern. We can see plead guilty, plead their case, plead for a duty, plead on Christ's behalf, plead something God, plead guilty, and so on. In fact, all of these examples are to do with the courts and prosecution, or perhaps to do with religion. And in none of these cases could we say beg. But if we looked in the dictionary, both beg and plead seem to be fairly close. They both mean to ask strongly. But the corpus tells us much more useful information, particularly if you're, say, a language learner, about how we should use these words in real life. Similarly with request, we can see there's a kind of pattern of the word request here. and here's the word ask, and that has a different pattern. We're not going to go into that now, but we can see that, for example, request seems to be a more formal sort of word, whereas ask seems to be something that's used in everyday conversation. Quite a lot of these examples are from books, but they're actually quotations of what people say in books, or they're books that are written in an informal register. So what we've got is, instead of talking about words and grammar, we can talk about a lexicogrammar. And the idea of putting those words together is to emphasize that lexis and grammar are not separate things, they are interdependent. Each one depends on the other. Another way to say this is that words, the words of a language, are a grammaticalized lexis. In other words, all words have grammar rules attached to them. Some of the grammar rules, the ones we learn in high school, are generalized rules that apply to big classes of words. But some of them apply just to individual words. So grammaticalized lexis means, or implies, learn the words, and as you learn the words, learn how to use them. Learn the grammar of those words. So that's what I just said. Language is grammaticalized lexis. Many, many words, most words, contain within them their own rules about how we use them.